Hi, so another set of videos from the Brookings Arts Council. As always, my name is Shelby, and I am going to show you today how to shade a sphere. So the first thing you're going to need is either like a regular pencil, not really a mechanical pencil, but just a regular like wood pencil, a colored pencil if you prefer, some paper, and then something to trace. I just have like my candle here that I'm going to trace something that's round, is it? So the reason I bring up either a regular like wooden pencil or just a regular like colored pencil is that wooden pencils are just gonna shade a little bit easier than a mechanical pencil. A mechanical pencil, it's really kind of difficult to get it to behave. Okay, and that didn't really work as best I wanted, so I'm just gonna flip it over and do it again. But yeah, a mechanical pencil is perfectly fine for like tracing around your round kind of object that you're gonna shade. But as far as shading goes, like you just can't hold it far enough up for it to look like a realistic shading. Also, just pencils in general, they smear because of the graphite, whereas I think it's important to learn how to do it without smearing before you try and smear. Smearing is really just like a really good way to kind of get yourself in trouble as far as with everything looking kind of one value. It's really difficult to get really darks and really lights if you smear, and so I think it's really important to learn how to do it without first, and you can't really smear colored pencils. So I'm going to show you how to do it with a colored pencil. If you would prefer to use graphite, please feel free to, but don't like rub your hand across it because even that'll smear it. But yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in. I'm just using like a really dark blue colored pencil, and first thing I have my sphere kind of traced on my paper there. And I'm just gonna start and figure out where your light is hitting. So like for mine, I'm gonna draw like a little fake sun. I have my paper folded in half so I can unfold it, but I'm gonna draw a little sun that you can erase when you're done, but that'll just kind of help you remind where like your light source is. Mine's up here. So my highlight is gonna be right there. So that means that this all down here is gonna be the dark, really dark shadow. So as far as that goes, I'm gonna start by kind of outlining a little bit that edge, and you don't want to go all the way around. Like I'd say about a third of the way around. It's like a pretty healthy amount. And you just want to outline it to kind of give yourself something to shade from. So just a really kind of harsh line that you're gonna shade from, and it's the edge, so that's okay. So I'll show you in a minute. You don't need to push super hard. I think it's really important also with shading to think about like layering, and so I got that. That's where it's gonna be dark for me. And I'm just gonna start by holding my pencil further back like this and just starting to do in small like ovals or circles some shading and getting in that darker value down there. So with this, it's important to remember that you don't want pencil lines. You don't want to see like the direction necessarily that you're shading, because it's gonna leave kind of a weird, like it wants to be three-dimensional, but it won't look three-dimensional, if that makes sense. So I'll show you. I got really just kind of a light value, which is way too light for this dark of a shadow, but it's good because, like I said, with layering, you can always go darker. You can't so much go lighter, especially with colored pencil. That's the one downside to colored pencil. You can't smear it, which I think is a good thing, and you can't really erase it. Graphite you can erase, but you can really kind of tell that you did erase. Like to maybe the untrained eye, it's not so evident, but like I'd be able to tell like, oh, you must have made a mistake there because you erased. So I'll show you in 1 second here. I'm going in circles, so I don't have really kind of harsh like direction lines that I'm coloring in. And I just got like, it's maybe like a sixth of the way done. So I'll hold it up close. You can't really see which direction. It's all kind of blending in nicely. And I'm just gonna continue with that value. Again, holding my pencil way far back and filling in with circles. So really you want to keep doing that. That's the big kind of thing. And getting darker closer to that line that you drew. You can work pretty dark right in there, but be careful that you don't leave like a harsh line, because otherwise it looks really awkward. It doesn't look real. So something that I like to do when I was first learning how to shade is we drew in that sun. That helps. But also thinking about where the highlight is. You drew the sun, so you know where that would be, and you have your shadow, you have that line kind of that we drew, and now we're shading away from that, getting lighter. But I think it's kind of difficult sometimes to know how far you should keep going with that like lighter value. And so I kind of like to, with a graphite pencil, just add like kind of a little like oval where, not dark because you want to be able to erase it, but just like a little area, you can see that, where you're not going to touch it all, right there. And that just helps you know that you're not like going crazy. It's really kind of easy to get caught up in shading and shade like the whole entire thing and not have a highlight, which is just as detrimental as like having it be, you know what I mean, like all one value, or having your lines visible. So I think that that's really helpful for beginners. The only thing with that is you have to make sure that you don't draw it too dark. Otherwise, when you do go up to it, you'll be able to see like a weird like pencil line in the middle of your sphere, whether it's a ball or an orb or whatever you want it to be. And so I'm just shading and shading and shading. And again, with layers, mine is like overall like pretty light still. I'm going in and kind of getting darker values right against that line. Again, like I said before, you can always go darker. It's a little bit hard, it's a little bit like easy to feel impatient or want to rush things, but I guarantee as soon as you rush things, it doesn't turn out and it looks kind of awkward and funky. So it's better to just go slow and layer it up and gradually get darker than to just rush in. When you're more practiced, rushing in is a little easier, but right now just learning, I highly recommend layering and going slow. So that's about probably as much as I'm gonna shade just like on camera here, just because you don't want to sit and watch me do it. It would be an exceptionally long video and I just don't really have that much to talk about, and I don't want to be like awkwardly silent. I'll show you kind of where I'm at. So like a nice gradient, you don't have any harsh lines, you can't really see other than that line that I drew initially. But the next step to making it really successful is adding like kind of a background. So I'm gonna add a line across the back, a horizon line. A horizon line is where the sky meets the earth, or in this case, if it's sitting on like a table or something. So just lines across there, and drawing a shadow underneath your ball too, so it's not just floating in air. So for your shadow, it'll come straight out from that side, so perpendicular or parallel rather to that like horizon line that you just drew. If your ball is on the table, the shadow will touch the ball. If it's floating above or bouncing, the shadow will have some space underneath. Also, it's important when you're doing shadows that the shadow is going to be the absolute darkest where it's meeting that object. So it gets darker and like recedes and is lighter from there. So I'll get that shadow kind of blocked in for you. Mine is round because you're doing a ball. You don't want just a flat shadow with a flat top. So I'll show you that in a minute as well. Just getting that shadow in. So looking like it's sitting on like a surface. And what I mean by round is it's parallel to this line on the top and bottom of the shadow, but around here it's round. It's not just cut off like a rectangle. So that's what I got. I'll post my final one and like some overview things and maybe some helpful tips and then the supplies that you'll need for this. But as always, my name is Shelby and it's been a pleasure. But yeah, you'll see me again next week.